Hello, morning everyone. Welcome to the Transport Focus webinar. I can see lots of people filtering in to join us, but I'm just going to give it another minute or so because I know people will still be arriving. I can see the number ticking up there. Lots of people on the webinar. That's very exciting. Still people coming in. Okay. Seems to be slowing down now. So I think most people have arrived and other people can join us as they wish to. So let's get going. So welcome to the Transport Focus webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Louise Collins, Director at Transport Focus, and lead our work for bus users. So I'm sure most of you on this call will know that we published the 2024 Your Bus Journey survey results earlier this year in March. And since then, we've been busy sharing the details, talking individually to you. And we've seen some really fantastic results in improving passenger satisfaction and really delivering for passengers. And whether that's people who are already doing really well and are right at the top of the table, or whether it's areas that actually are in a slightly more challenging situation, but still seeing some really great improvements. So across the board, we've seen some really good work. And that is a result of all the hard work that has taken place over the last couple of years in the bus industry. Now, one of the most useful things that we recognise is that you in the industry, bus operators and local transport authorities, can share your great examples. So whether that's the best practice and the quick win stuff, or whether it's through really open conversation about some of the gnarlier challenges that you face and how you've been tackling those. And that's the purpose of today's webinar. We're bringing people together to have a really good open conversation about some of the, the successes you've had, but also some of those challenges that you face. So I've got 3 really good speakers who've joined us. They're going to share their examples from within their own areas. We're going to have 10 minutes from each speaker and then some time for questions. So people who are watching on the webinar, you will be muted and your video turned off. But the way you can engage with this is through putting questions in the chat. So if you click on chat, you can see it's in there. And there's a Q&A button as well that you can use. So use that Q&A function to put questions and queries over. So I can see that my colleague Colette is saying that in fact the chat function's been turned off. So it's the Q&A button that you use. So get your questions in there as people are speaking, and at the end we'll go through them. I'm joined by my colleagues, Rebecca Joyner. Lots of you will know Becky. She's in charge of the insight work and leads the survey. She's going to help with the question sections. And also my colleague David Beer. He's in charge of all the engagement. Lots of you will know David, so he's going to help answer things in that chat as well. I don't think there's any more housekeeping that I need to go through, so I think that means that we're ready to go. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So first on, we've got Craig Lamberton. He's from the passenger transport team. He's team manager at East Sussex Council. Welcome, Craig.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, next slide. I'll go straight into my presentation. You've already introduced me. Thanks, Louise. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, keep going. One more. Yeah, so I'll just run through the passenger satisfaction results for your bus journey, then I'll go into the possible reasons why we've improved so significantly. So from 23 to 24, we've jumped up, I think 8 places, no, sorry, 14 places, the joint highest improving authority. We're coming 12 out of 38 in England, up from 26 in 23. Our overall satisfaction has gone up 8% to 87. Waiting time and punctuality, both up 11%, and value for money has gone up by 6. We've also seen improvement in every single key area, from local bus services to bus facilities and the bus driver. Next slide, please. And that's just summarising it a little bit more graphically. So hopefully can take that in. So that the biggest is the fact that we've seen the overall satisfaction go up 8%, which is, as I said previously, the joint equal top increase. Next slide, please. As well as those results, we've seen 2 of our operators in East Sussex perform really well. Compass Travel, as a whole operation, they operate in West Sussex and Brighton and Hove and East Sussex, are ranked 2nd with 96% customer satisfaction. And Brighton and Hove buses, the East Sussex operation, not Brighton and Hove in totality, but the East Sussex operation have a 92% satisfaction rating, placing them joint 3rd. So that's pretty impressive. So that obviously helps for our overall passenger satisfaction when you've got 2 operators in the top 3. Next slide, please. So why have we done so well between 23 and 24? 41.4 million pounds of BSIP grant allocation obviously helped that. 22.3 of that was capital and 19.1 of revenue. I'll go to explain how we spent that. Half of that has gone into bus priority, which is not delivered yet. So we've not seen the benefits from the bus lanes that we're planning to still deliver. Next slide, please. That's it graphically. That's how we've split it. As you can see, 20 million going to bus priority, 18 million to physical bus lanes, and 1.5 million to traffic light priority at 30 locations across East Sussex. Those are delivered. We have yet to deliver any bus lanes, but we still plan to deliver those. 0.8 million on real-time information and 1.5 million on better bus stop infrastructure, everything from new bus shelters to hard standing posts, flags, timetables, bus stop clearways, etc. Probably the most significant change that we've seen is the amount we've invested in new bus services, 14 million in total, 34% of our revenue budget. 34% of our overall budget. 10.5 million of that is on conventional fixed route and fixed timetable services, and 3.5 on DRT services. We've also invested, or had invested, 4.5 million in fare reduction and 600k on other things like comms, marketing, and bus team. Next slide, please. We've produced a series of infographics. I'm not going to do these in any great depth because I've only got 10 minutes, and I promised Louise that I won't go over that. But we've done some value for money work with consultants to determine what the value for money in our investment has been. The top line there is all the bus services in totality. Bottom line is conventional services, which is seeing a value for money of 4.33. So for every pound spent, we're seeing £4.33 of benefits. The top line's the total DRT plus conventional, which is seeing 3.87. Next slide, please. And the DRT is seeing a value for money of 3.02. So again, for every pound spent, I think most people know what value for money is, but we're trying to make it as simple as possible. For every pound spent, we're seeing over £3 worth of benefits. So for a DRT scheme, that's very impressive. So we're very pleased, as was the DFT, to see that we're seeing very good value for money in that investment. And hopefully we'll see that go up as passenger numbers increase and we're getting better aggregation, more trips, more passengers per trip. Next slide, please. And again, I won't go into great depth on this. The slides will be shared, but we've seen good passenger growth. We're at about 96 in 24. We're at about 96 of pre-COVID. This is a calendar year, but we've seen the next line down, dotted line, 109% of fare-paying passengers. So we're actually seeing more fare-paying passengers in 24 than we did in 2019, pre-COVID year. and concessionary fare paying passengers are about 77%. And on the right, already covered that, is the increase in passenger satisfaction from 79 to 87. Next slide, please. And yes, again, infographic, we didn't want to miss out the £20 million, so almost half of our 41.4 is going on to bus priority. So we've done an infographic on that. I'll not go into that in any detail, but it's all pretty self-explanatory. Next slide, please. I think key difference between 23 and 24. So our bus services started conventional bus services started in July 23, so more than halfway through the year. So they wouldn't have really had much effect on passenger satisfaction in 23. Our DRT service started in May 23, but again, passenger numbers were quite low on the outset. They've increased significantly since back the first few months. So we expect that the actual service provision for the BSIP enhancements didn't really kick in or take much effect on overall passenger satisfaction. But what we have done differently is marketing. So we've done a lot more investment in marketing. We invested in a marketing and comms officer working directly in BSIP, and they've done a lot of work to promote everything from fares to services to real-time information provision, bus stop infrastructure, but particularly the fares initiatives. Next slide, please. And again, that just covers the difference between 23 and 24 with the new officer on board. You can see that there's a 320% overall increase in impressions and 521% increase in the page reach. So a significant difference between 23 and 24. So obviously, one of the differences was our 8% increase in satisfaction. So a lot of people maybe didn't know about what we were doing on BSIP in 23. Some of those things started in 23, like the bus services, the fares were in place, but telling people and letting people know about them was the key difference between those 2 years. The other thing that had probably a key part to role in improved satisfaction was improved reliability from our main operator, Stagecoach, who in 23 had a lot of quite significant issues with driver shortages. A lot of services, or a significant number of services, didn't run, so probably affected people's passenger satisfaction. When asked about general satisfaction with buses or anything in particular with buses, if your bus hasn't turned up, it's likely to affect your response. Next slide, please. I'll just run through these very quickly. They're just about passenger numbers, so we go through those quite quickly. So next slide, please. This is our overall passenger numbers. Sorry, just go back one, and we're at this year 97% of all passengers. Next slide, please. Fare paying passengers are over 100%, 106% in March. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry, back one. And concessionary, you can see that we are now up to 82%. So the passenger numbers are bearing out the work that we're doing on the BSIP, and obviously a key part of that is the promotion and marketing and comms activities. Next slide. And next slide. And looking at the DFT managed data. Next slide, please. We are sitting at 6th, 7th on the table, behind Thurrock, Blackburn, Bedfordshire and Southampton and Portsmouth. So we're sitting 7th out of 80 odd local authorities. So that's looking at 23-24. So the financial year 23-24 passenger numbers at DFT collate compared to 18-19. So we're sitting at 99. Next slide, please. 99%. So 6th, it's a bit clearer there. So yeah, we're obviously quite satisfied with where we are in terms of passenger growth. And that's the end of the presentation. So I'll go into question and answers. Just went over 10 minutes. Sorry, Louise.
That's great. Thank you, Craig. You were very disciplined with time. Thank you. Really, really interesting presentation. Thanks so much. I'm going to use Chair's prerogatives to start with a question or two, although I can see there are a couple coming through in the chat, but do get any more in now that you want us to ask Craig. We've got a few minutes for that. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was the investment in DRT. So, and I see we've got a couple of questions there about the value for money, which you're showing at sort of 300% looks incredible. So I wonder if you could share a bit more detail about what you think has made that DRT a success, because we know, don't we, that people across the country are really grappling with the challenge of how to serve rural customers effectively. What is it you've actually done there?
Yes, so the DRT scheme was part of our, one of the first things that we considered, or certainly one of our key objectives of our BSIP was to deliver DRT in East Sussex and across a large part of East Sussex. I think the coverage is 90% of the overall area of East Sussex. We're not covering Hastings, Eastbourne, so that the key towns are not covered as they've got good bus services. Yeah, it was always a plan with the BSIP funding. Obviously, it depended on how much we got, but we had enough revenue funding to develop and deliver a significant DRT provision in East Sussex. It was extremely challenging. It's obviously not many local authorities have experience in digital demand responsive transport, so it is an app-based system with a telephone booking system as well, so a call center. But it was extremely challenging. It's been our most high-profile thing that we've done. We've got conventional service improvements of triple what we've done in terms of DRT, but they've received a tenth of the kind of overall interest and press coverage of the DRT scheme. It's been extremely challenging. A lot of work and effort's gone in to make it work with a number of suppliers, including the digital platform supplier, working with the operators who provide the drivers. We've got vehicles from another supplier. So lots of challenges there, but now it's doing well. Our next kind of objective is to improve aggregation, so getting more passengers per vehicle trip. But yeah, so having value for money using web tags, so we're using the DfT's guidance on or assessment of transport schemes. So we use web tag, and we didn't divert from that at all. So it is a robust figure. We presented that to the DfT. We've asked them to kind of comment or check that they're comfortable with what we provided, and they are. So it's really, really positive to get that value for money up at over 3. There's lots of detractors out there. Probably a lot of people on the call are, who run DRT services are aware of the detractors out there. So it was really positive to see that. A lot of people are saying that it's not value for money. We've kind of shown using WebTag that it is value for money.
Okay, thanks, Craig. And I can see that there are more questions about DRT coming through in the chat, which we'll make sure that we pick up separately after the webinar. Becky, is there something else coming through in the chat that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, thank you very much, Craig. There's all sorts of questions on different topics here. So as Louise says, we'll probably follow up with some of the similar things afterwards. But just a sort of general topic that's come up a couple of times in the Q&A is on the bus priority schemes that you talked about. So there's a question here about how you've been able to do that. I think that means sort of in practice, and also sort of a related question as to whether you have a sense of the relative impact of priority schemes versus the other bus lanes, and this is related to traffic light priorities as well. So sorry, that's 2 questions in one, but hopefully that's something you can talk about.
Sorry, I didn't just catch the very beginning. What was the question on the bus lanes?
And just how you've been able to progress with that. And I think we're kind of interested in how you've worked with partners in the local authority and others to come against that.
Oh yes, so the bus lanes, we haven't delivered them yet. We're well through the process. We're in the TRO stage with the bus lanes. Consultation was challenging. We had to consult twice on one particular bus lane, where first time round the overall objections to it were quite high. So we had to go back out and make sure we got what the DfT called proportional representation. So ask bus users to provide their comments in support of the bus lane. It's been very time consuming. We're already outside the BSIP1 timeframe, which was meant to have delivered bus lanes by 31st of March this year. So it's not easy, and I think anyone on the call who's trying to deliver a bus lane will probably know that. There's no kind of easy answer in terms of delivering bus lanes. You've got to go through the process, but just be as diligent as possible. Consultation is key, making sure you're getting proportional representation. So asking bus users about their views on the scheme. Lots of the locals will be very keen to answer. Some local businesses may even plan and orchestrate opposition to bus lanes. That's probably a given, particularly if you're losing parking spaces, as one of our schemes was. So it's challenging, but yeah, you've got to make sure that you get the bus users. So you know, the operator themselves went out and made sure that the people on the bus who go down that corridor or will use a bus lane in the future had an opportunity to respond to the consultation. Just to say that we are undertaking value for money calculations on the bus lanes and on the traffic light priority. So the traffic light priority schemes started being introduced at tail end of 24. A lot came in March and April, February, March, and some in April this year. So it's early days to trying to determine value for money and journey time savings estimates, but we're going to be monitoring that in terms of the bus journey time savings, but we're also looking at general vehicle traffic journey time savings because we've introduced Move at 8, which should have a benefit for general traffic, and we should see very high value for money. We're expecting to see very high value for money for the traffic light priority schemes.
Great, thank you, Craig. And I think we've run out of time for questions, and it's obvious that there's more stuff that people could ask you about this. So I would encourage people to get in touch with each other after the session to follow up on things that they've heard that are particularly interesting, and we will follow up on some of those questions. Thanks, Craig, very much. And we're going to go on to our next speaker now, and we're going to hear from Richard Wellings, Principal Public Transport Officer at Nottingham City Council. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks very much, Louise. Very, very interesting presentation from Craig over in East Sussex. I'm afraid mine's not going to be as stat heavy. I'm going to focus on some of the sort of policy approach that we take in Nottingham in terms of getting stuff done. For many years, we've had a very good reputation in terms of delivery and the quality of our public transport network, and this really has been achieved by taking a bit of a incremental approach to bus service improvement. So it's something that we've chipped away at over a number of years. There hasn't always necessarily been a grand plan, a grand strategic plan in place. We've just liaised with our operators locally, identify problems, and then work together to implement solutions and deliver things as quickly as possible. So moving on to the next slide. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of talk currently, particularly in the franchising space, about branding, B networks. We've got the Weaver network coming in West Yorkshire as well shortly. In Nottingham, we do have the Robin Hood network brand, which I think is really key in terms of the legibility of the network and enabling passengers to understand that we do have an integrated bus and tram network locally. I think we take things very seriously in terms of the marketing of the network. So we do have this sort of integrated publicity in place at all our bus stops and interchanges across the city. We are in the process of upgrading our passenger waiting facilities as well. They're being decked out in Robin Hood, Lincoln Green as I speak, and we have implemented these new style bus stop flags. Bus stop flags, I think, are really important. in Nottingham, we like a really big, chunky bus stop flag. You know, we want people to know that the bus stop is here, and the bus stops are bus services are available. We started introducing key destinations onto our bus stop flags as well to support the visitor economy in the city, which I think is quite a good thing to do. And we do have comprehensive real-time information across the network. So all that sort of marketing and promotion of the network side is really good. But I think we're very fortunate in Nottingham that we've got two outstanding local bus operators, and that has been borne out in the recent Transport Focus survey. Passenger satisfaction with our local bus operators is very high. For those of you not accustomed to Nottingham, our main two operators are Nottingham City Transport, who are municipally owned, and Trent Barton, who are another local independent bus operator. And I think that we've got two bus operators that are so embedded in the local community, understand the geography of the city and the region. You know, I think that makes a massive difference to the quality of the service provided. There's definitely a halo effect that those two quality operators in Nottingham have across the wider region, because they're such high quality, such outstanding operators. That does impact on the wider patch. And again, I think that was borne out in the recent Transport Focus survey data, where Derby City, Nottingham, Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire were all in the top 10 in terms of passenger satisfaction. One area that was teased out by the survey, where we didn't do as well as we wanted to, was around disability access. So going forward, that's going to be a key work strand for us, improving that accessibility to our bus services. If we can just move on to the next slide. I think this slide neatly summarizes why we have got such a strong network in Nottingham. So if we look at the service frequency map, we've got real high levels of frequency in terms of bus services around the Greater Nottingham area. We do have a truly turn up and go network. I think a number of years, sort of around about 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, we did have the densest network of bus services outside London. I don't know if that's still the case. I imagine it probably is. So, you know, we often get asked what the secret sauce is or secret recipe is in terms of success for our bus services in Nottingham, and it is really as simple as delivering a very high frequency network of bus services with decent services operating both at the evening and at weekends too. In terms of the approach we take, well, I think the infographic on the left neatly summarizes what we do in Nottingham and the key areas that we look to improve. So we're always developing new projects, new schemes to deliver those ambitions on the left-hand side of this slide. There's been heavy investment in Nottingham recently in electrification of buses, as I'm sure is the case across the region, across the country. That is a real priority for us going forward now. So we want to get the network to zero emission as quickly as we possibly can. We think we can probably, with a fair wind and a decent amount of funding from government via the combined authority, get there in the next 5 to 10 years. So we are working on that basis. We're interested to see the detail of the Chancellor's announcement today on transport funding for the East Midlands and start working that through and getting on with that. So I think the future for Nottingham is and the wider region is very, very positive in that regard. I mean, I haven't got a lot more to say this morning. So if there are any particular questions that people want to ask me about our approach, I'm happy to take those.
Thanks, Richard. I'm talking with the fire alarm, the fire drill going off in the background, so apologies for the noise here. Becky, do you want to start with a couple of questions from the chat?
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard. So we've got a couple of kind of key topics with questions here. Firstly, you talked about sort of the role of your two major local operators and how important they are in, you know, working kind of as a greater than the sum of their parts together. To create kind of a good overall impression of bus services in the region. We've got a question here about whether whether you as the council kind of lead all of the publicity and I guess the other sort of initiatives that you're looking at as well, or what role do they operators have in promoting those and also contributing to the cost of all of those?
Yeah, so we have a Robin Hood marketing group, which is led by the Nottingham City Council, but it really is a co-production with the local operators. So you know, we use a lot of their design skills, etc., in terms of producing the publicity for Robin Hood network, and a bit of a stipend is taken from the multi-operator Robin Hood ticket to pay for that marketing activity. I think we are looking to accelerate that integration between bus and tram services. So I think from a combined authority point of view, we will be looking to put more money into that marketing effort. And there are still conversations we want to have with the local bus and tram operators about removing the premium on that multi-operator ticket. So there is roughly a 15 to 20% premium on the Robin Hood multi-operator ticket compared to single operator products locally. So, you know, whilst we have got good bus and tram integration and we have got some very sophisticated ticketing products in place, both through Nottingham contactless and the ITSO-based Robin Hood's pay-as-you-go card, which is an Oyster equivalent, there is a lot of work that we still want to do to improve things locally in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Again, we might end up with too many questions to be able to capture here, but one other topic we've got, I'll try and combine a couple of things here. So do you have a sense or data, in fact, on which of the kind of initiatives you're doing are valued by customers? So you talked about roadside infrastructure, faster journey times, for example. Do you have any data on which of those is creating, you know, better outcomes for passengers, or which they perceive as better?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to say because we take such a 360-degree approach to bus service improvement in Nottingham. We know that real-time information, and I'm sure this will come as no shock to colleagues on the call, is a very useful tool in terms of passenger information at bus stops when it works and when it's accurate, of course. But we can only really go on our passenger satisfaction results with public transport information from the last Transport Focus survey, and they have shown improvement. So we're obviously doing something right. Again, our local operators are very proactive in engaging with the customers, have you know, very good marketing and comms teams, and it's really not an afterthought. Similarly, Nottingham with our sort of Transport Nottingham media and communications arm, we're very proactive in promoting bus and tram, active travel, all that kind of good stuff. So, you know, it is a combined effort, but I think it's really important. And again, I'm very conscious that I'm telling a lot of esteemed colleagues on this call how to do their jobs, which is not my intention at all. People know this anyway. I think it's really important to take time to make sure that the information at your passenger waiting facilities, bus stop, bus stations is top drawer, clear, legible, and provides information that people need. So, you know, it's maintaining both that digital presence as well as the more traditional timetables, etc., maps. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much time we've got for more questions, but one other, at least one other sort of related question to that is what you just talked about is looking at what your existing customers and bus users are appreciating. Do you know or have any information from non-users about how to encourage more non-users into using buses?
Yeah, I mean, so we do obviously collectively run various passenger surveys throughout the year. So we do always say, you know, we want, whether you're a bus user or a non-bus user, we do want your feedback on bus services. I think investment obviously in modern vehicles always helps to get people out of their Range Rovers who perhaps wouldn't particularly traditionally use buses. I think anything we can do to improve the passenger experience generally helps that. So again, that investment in passenger waiting infrastructure, safe, well-lit routes to bus stops, you know, higher quality buses. The passenger experience on an electric bus is no doubt superior to that on a diesel bus. It's a much calmer, less rattly, less noisy, more pleasurable experience, dare I say it. And again, our operators do invest quite heavily in the onboard passenger experience. So, you know, Nottingham City Transport's buses are fitted with Italian Lazzarini seats, made in Bari. So, you know, they are luxury coach seats. So making those journeys as comfortable and attractive for people as possible. We obviously have been able to run ticketing promotions as well during school holiday periods and stuff like that as well, using BSIP money. So again, that helps to get people on board. New developments as well, we're on top of that as well in terms of using Section 106 funding to get in there right when people move into those developments with taster tickets for public transport and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult to get some people out of the cars. They won't get out of the cars. You have to look at supply side measures as well, limiting parking availability within city centres and attractors, which I think we've done quite well in Nottingham, especially through things like our workplace parking levy, which have, you know, helped to dampen down demand. People say, you know, there's no car parking spaces in Nottingham, you can't drive into Nottingham. Well, we've still got around about 8,000 car parking spaces within the city centre. So, you know, we have been successful in restricting that supply, but it's a balancing act, especially given sort of councils' reliance on parking income. So, you know, for transport investment, so there is always a bit of a tension there with other departments. So yeah.
Can I just ask for a very sort of quick answer to a final question, Richard? And there's obviously loads more we could have asked you about again. But you mentioned about a focus on improving sort of the accessibility side of things, something we're really interested in. And I'm just wondering, you know, what type of thing you're looking at improving for disabled passengers.
So we think there's a bit of a gap in terms of the visually impaired, particularly. So, and we have trialed things like talking bus stops in the past, but we found some of the technology that we've looked at a bit ropey, shall we say. So we did lay out one of our bus stop arrangements within our office to test a bit of kit, and we just had all these bus stops being triggered randomly by the fob and the system in question, which would have been very confusing for visually impaired passengers, but that's a bit of a gap as we see it. So we've got decent bus stop infrastructure for level boarding and that kind of thing, and deployment of ramps. But yeah, we see a bit of a gap in that visually impaired space currently locally. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Richard. It'd be good to see the progress you make on that in the next year or so. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. It's really interesting.
No problem.
We need to move on relatively quickly now to our final presentation. We're going to hear now from West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and we're joined by two people. We've got Thomas Locke, Policy Manager, and Andrew Fitzpatrick, who's the Research and Spatial Intelligence Manager. Over to you, Andrew and Thomas.
Well, hi everyone, and thank you for having us today. I'm Tom Locke. I'm a Transport Policy Manager at the Combined Authority. I was responsible for developing our bus service improvement plan and now work across a range of different customer-focused policies and strategies. I'll just quickly let Andrew introduce himself.
Hi everyone. Yeah, good morning. My name's Andrew. I manage part of the Research Intelligence Service here at the Combined Authority. That includes commissioning research on and understanding how people have satisfaction with bus and using a range of operational data, which has kind of already been covered this morning by others.
Brilliant. So a real quick introduction to West Yorkshire and our transport network. We are a mayoral combined authority led by Tracy Brabin, and as the slide shows, we are quite a big region. We are polycentric with multiple centres. We have sort of big cities like Leeds and Bradford, as well as kind of towns like Wakefield, Huddersfield, Halifax, and sort of a mix of then sort of small commuter towns and villages. We've got a good mix of rural and urban areas, and we see varied travel patterns across the region with sort of lots of intra-regional travel and then cross-boundary services too. This means we have quite a complex transport network, which needs to sort of serve a range of different customer types and travel needs. I think next slide, please. So we do have really big plans for transport in West Yorkshire. We want to deliver an integrated multimodal transport network, and that's not least through bus franchising, which we're looking to roll out from 2027, alongside a plan for a new mass transit system and rail reform. And we are already in receipt of quite significant amounts of CRSTS capital funding and BSIT revenue funding, which we're investing in improved roads, bus and rail stations, and walking and cycling routes. Importantly, I think this means we're going to have more power and resource than ever before to address customer needs, but it also really means we have more responsibility than ever before to make sure we are delivering for customers. You might have seen last month we launched our new transport brand, the Weaver Network, which aims to bring this all together. This is really exciting, and the brand is going to come with a sort of simple promise to customers that will get you there. There's much more to say on that at another time, but I think, yeah, we're very much looking at how we can deliver for customers at the moment. If we can skip a slide, please. Next slide, please. So we do still know our region has some significant transport challenges, and I won't go through these one by one, but I think collectively, as kind of the Your Bus Journey results show, these lead to varied customer satisfaction and an ongoing preference for the private car. We know it is leading to challenges like holding back economic growth, as well as other negative health, social and environmental outcomes. But a key part of my job is really thinking, well, what does this actually mean for the passenger waiting at the bus stop? How do they experience these challenges? Kind of what doesn't work for them, but also what does work for them, and how can we bring these together to make sure we're delivering a transport network that is an attractive first choice for travel. And I'll hand over to Andrew to explain a bit more about how we get that customer insight.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, I've got a couple of slides on where Your Bus Journey survey fits in for us and the value of it in relation to the research landscape, if you like. So we really do value the results of the Your Bus Journey survey. I mean, it's part of a suite of data that's available, so we can get things like trips and purpose of journeys to help us understand volumes from things like National Travel Survey. Similarly, NHT provides some insight on perception, satisfaction with local bus services and aspects of bus. all the squares in green here are things that the combined authority does. So right in the centre, we've got an annual public perceptions of transport survey, which I'll come on to in a minute, which really helps kind of works in parallel really well with your bus journey survey. I think we've got a range of different things that happen, but they're often geographically limited. So we'll do things specifically for monitoring and evaluation purposes. So in specific areas. We are developing more research in the space, so we've got ambitions to set up a transport-related online panel, and we're utilising some of our existing channels. So we've got a multimodal transport app called the M Card in West Yorkshire, and we're trying to utilise that in terms of understanding perceptions of users. Just moving on to the next slide, just a bit of a comparison between the Your Bus Journey survey and our own survey. I think the comparison of the two here is that we're hearing directly from bus users in terms of their perceptions and the particular aspects of bus, that the whole journey all the way through. I think that complements getting that insight really complements a long-running existing survey that we do, which covers the whole population. So I think from our perspective, we see survey work like this as really valuable because it presents us with a bit of a holistic picture, both of existing users, what they want, how we continue to get them to use the bus, as well as on the flip side, understanding, and this was mentioned earlier by others, non-bus users and what we can do to incentivize those, and understanding their barriers to bus and what would make them change their behaviors. If you move on to the next slide, please. So just a bit about how all this research kind of fits in for us, and the Your Bus Journey survey is vital to this, is that fundamentally, we've got, and as mentioned previously, we've got quite a lot of monitoring evaluation commitments. We've got an existing transport strategy, developing a new local transport plan, and survey work like this ends up feeding quite important kind of key performance indicators so that we can effectively establish barometers to measure success through time, and we've got things like so the BSIP, as well as kind of local capital funded programs like a Leeds Public Transport Investment Programme. The other side of this, in terms of how researchers use, is really, hopefully, it's the ingredients to Tom's side of the world, which is why the pair of us here really, which is insight for policy development. So it's helping us understand where we what customers want, where we should prioritize investment. It helps us to some extent shape changes to changes in tickets and the approaches to buying tickets. I think the other side of this is around public accountability. Asking people and doing it in a very structured and robust way. This kind of research demonstrates that we're actively listening to the public and acting on their views. And ultimately, it does help us, this kind of research helps us support further funding bids and develop business cases as well. So on to some results. I love a good chart. I'm not saying this is, but it is a chart. So I think the key thing for us in terms of the value of the Your Bus Journey survey against the local stuff that we do, which is helpful, is that it's a benchmarking. It's a really important benchmark for us. So now got 2 years worth of data from Your Bus Journey survey. So not only can we look at changes through time, which is really helpful, and I suspect everyone else on the call feels the same way, but the key thing that we can't do ourselves without the likes of the Your Bus Journey survey is to see how we in West Yorkshire are performing compared to others, and how their interventions are having an impact. Yes, the chart does show that West Yorkshire does rank bottom out of all the participating local transport authorities. What's really important to us is to understand how we fit in with other metropolitan areas. So in terms of overall satisfaction, this year West Yorkshire rank was 77% satisfied, so a slight increase from last year. Still ranked lowest. And England, I think what we see is that on that chart there is that everything has moved up slightly. So the value of the Your Bus Journey survey is now understanding some of the depth through the demographic lenses, or which particular groups have affected the overall satisfaction score. If you move on to the next slide, please. So to do this, you've all got your own results. You've all seen the national results, but I think some things for us are really helpful to see. So our biggest increase within West Yorkshire was satisfaction with waiting time at this stop that went up by 8 percentage points. So that's higher than the England increase of 4 percentage points. We also see an increase in satisfaction with punctuality and journey times, which is helpful to see because that's where some of our investments have gone into. Although that increase was the same magnitude as the England increase. A bit of a challenge for us, which Tom will come on to, is value for money. So we introduced a local fare cap in parallel to the national fare cap, and here we see actually year on year value for money has declined. Satisfaction with value for money has declined slightly. Last slide for me is the next one, please. And I think thank you. Here, I think it's just having this kind of depth from bus users and then being able to unpick all the details behind this. So understanding how people feel from different demographics, different demographic groups is really quite helpful. I think what it does do is it adds more evidence to our insight in terms of what the biggest issues are. For years, cost has been quite high up in terms of kind of barriers to bus. We've tried to tackle that with things like mayor's fares, which is the local fare cap. But I think resoundingly, we see major issues are things like satisfaction with frequency and reliability. And again, comparing ourselves with other local transport authorities are the key things that we need to address. That's why your bus journey survey is really quite a useful insight tool here. I'll hand back to Tom for the last few slides, if that's all right.
Brill, thank you. And I'm really conscious of time, but I just want to quickly cover how we are addressing some of the key challenges highlighted by the transport focus research. So Andrew's spoken there a lot about satisfaction of cost and value for money. And I think when we first developed our BSIP, that was kind of a real clear argument for us that we needed to improve that. So with our BSIP funding, we invested in fares subsidy ahead of a national scheme, and that capped both singles tickets and our day ticket in West Yorkshire as well. Our own surveys have highlighted some really positive results of this. So we've seen, increased satisfaction, suggestions of modal shift, and also addressing people's sort of fears around cost of living and making more people feel like the bus was an affordable choice. But also, as Andrew mentioned, we have seen in the latest results that satisfaction has gone back down. And I think to me that suggests, fare subsidy alone isn't a silver bullet if the other aspects of your service aren't up to scratch. I think another key sort of challenge for us is perceptions around frequency and that sense that the bus takes people where they need to go, when they need to go. I mean, your bus journey results highlight the network as a key challenge. That's not really too surprising considering kind of some of the challenges we've had with the impacts of COVID and rising cost to provide bus services. But what customer satisfaction has really helped us do is make the case for investment in both protecting and enhancing the network. So we've made significant investments to do just that. And again, we are doing further customer insights to kind of understand the impact of this. So for example, again, we've seen kind of improving frequency is helping people travel more. It's improving people's perceptions that they can get to jobs and other economic opportunities. But it is also highlighting some of the challenges that remain. So in our latest round of surveys, we still saw people kind of dissatisfied in the evenings when that frequency was still lower than in the daytime. So customer insight is really important to helping us make that case for investing in protecting our services. I think we'll just move to the final slide, which is punctuality and reliability. I think this is probably similar for many areas, but your bus journey consistently highlights this as one of customers' main areas of concern and a key driver in dissatisfaction. Positively, we did see this year an increase in that, and that was relative to kind of a rise across the country, but we still do kind of remain below the kind of national average. I think we also recognise addressing punctuality and reliability is not a quick fix, but we are investing significantly in sort of highway measures that will improve this. But I think this is where customer insight alongside customer engagement and communications is really important. Addressing bus priority and through highway schemes can lead to short-term pain. So what we need to do is work with our communities to kind of really help them understand the longer-term benefits of this and kind of help make that case for investment in those measures. So yeah, I think there's that really virtuous circle there between customer insight and then customer engagement and consultation as well. And I think that's the same for some of the policy levers we're trying to sort of bring in through our local transport plan. I'll wrap up there. I think there's just one last slide, which I think really we just wanted to make the point that we know customers aren't a homogenous group, and now I think we're really working to understand the difference between different passenger types. Obviously, the EDI characteristics are really important to that, but we want to make sure we understand people's different travel patterns, different preferences, and make sure we're developing solutions that meet people's different needs. So I'll end there and go to questions. Sorry,
Thanks,
Louise.
Tom. No, don't worry. Thanks, Tom and Andrew. Really interesting and particularly interesting to hear about genuine engagement with users and non-users and how those insights are driving improvements. I think, Becky, we've maybe got time just for a quick question.
Sure. Okay. There are quite a few questions and they're all very interesting. So this is pressure for me to choose the most interesting one. I think this has come up across a couple of the different presentations. So I can see a few people have sort of liked this question. So we'll go with what do you think and what insights do you have and what are the main barriers for non-users at the moment? So you've obviously done a lot of research into that. So that'd be really helpful to hear what things you're finding from that.
I'll give this a go, Tom. So I think the main things are probably the things that you'd expect. So things that we've tried to address. So perceptions of the cost of bus, the cost of tickets, reliability, punctuality, knowing where buses serve. I think one of the things that we have found over the years of doing research is that there's a bit of a hardened group that are very unlikely to kind of change their ways. There's a certain group of the population where making changes to the network will at least help them help influence their behaviours and give the bus a go. But I think what we do recognise is that there is a bit of a group who are very unlikely to shift their mode of travel, and I think this helps us then understand well exactly how much we expect people to use public transport in the future. It's not going to be everybody, so we need to kind of really focus our efforts into the particular demographic groups that are more likely to shift their behaviour change.
Yeah, so understanding the priorities within the non-users and the lower hanging fruit within them. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I wish we had time for more questions, but we don't. We will send out afterwards the recording, the slides, and a wrap up of some of those Q&As. A couple more bits to mention just before you leave. This has been incredibly useful today to share all this best practice. We're planning to have another webinar later in the year. We're going to focus then on the key driver analysis, so what we know really drives customer satisfaction, and we'll share more details with that in due course. We've got a data hub. It's got all the Your Bus Journey results in it. You can go in there, analyse your own and other people's results. I think we're putting a link maybe into the Q&A or the chat that you can kind of use yourselves to get in there. We've seen some case studies today. We're really interested to know what's happening out and about across the country. We can use these case studies, we can share them between you, but we can also share them with other decision makers and leaders who they're really influential to see those. We'll be having an event in the House of Commons later in the year. If you've got case studies and examples that you think would be great to share with us, then contact us, contact our engagement team. We'd really like to hear those. And then the final thing is, you've heard today about Your Bus Journey and the way the results have helped people understand and drive improvements. If your area isn't currently participating, whether you're an authority or an operator, and you'd like to be in it in 2026, contact us now, because we're starting to make plans for 2026 and we can talk to you about what that would look like. So get in touch with the team. So thanks very much to all our speakers. Thanks to Craig, thanks to Richard, Tom and Andrew, and also Becky and David who've helped, and the team at Transport Focus who've made this work. And thanks to everyone for joining and listening and watching with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.